Have you ever found yourself walking out of a store holding a shopping bag with some surprisingly expensive item that you absolutely did not intend to buy when you woke up that morning?
Oh, yeah. Or, maybe you agreed to do this huge, really time-consuming favor for an acquaintance.
Right, a favor you genuinely, did not want to do. And then as you're walking back to your car, you just stare at your keys and think, why did I just say yes to that?
It is such a relatable feeling.
It really is. Well, if that exact feeling of mild bewilderment sounds familiar to you, you are in exactly the right place. Welcome to this deep dive into the psychology of persuasion.
Yes, today we are digging into the foundational work of Dr. Robert Cialdini.
Exactly. We really want to uncover those invisible strings that pull our behavior. We're going to expose the weapons of influence used by compliance professionals.
Right, the salespeople, the fundraisers, marketers.
Yeah, the people who basically bypass our critical thinking and just get us to comply.
And You know, while it's incredibly easy to feel a bit manipulated or even foolish when we look at these tactics, it is so important to remember that these psychological triggers weren't originally designed to trick us.
Right. They have a purpose.
Exactly. They actually evolved to help human beings survive. They allow us to make rapid decisions in an overwhelmingly complex world and, to cooperate effectively with one another.
So our goal today isn't to make you paranoid about every single interaction you have.
No, definitely not. It's to arm you with the knowledge you need to recognize these tactics in the wild. Once you can actually see the strings, you can decide for yourself when to go along with them and when to cut them.
Okay, let's unpack this by looking at how our minds sometimes run on complete autopilot. Because when you dig into the research, there's this fascinating parallel drawn between human decision-making and animal behavior.
There really is, and it comes from ethology, which is the scientific study of animal behavior in their natural environments. Ethologists have identified something called fixed action patterns in a lot of species. And the classic, slightly bizarre example involves the mother turkey and her natural predator, the polecat.
Okay, right, the stuffed polecat.
Yeah. So if you pull a stuffed polecat toward a mother turkey on a string, she will viciously attack it. She recognizes the visual cues of her enemy and just goes into full defense mode.
Which makes sense.
Right. But researchers found this strange loophole in her biology. If they place a small tape recorder inside that stuffed polecat and play the cheep cheep sound of baby turkey, she doesn't just stop attacking.
Wait, she mothers it, right.
Exactly. She actually gathers the stuffed polecat underneath her and nurtures it. She is mothering her natural enemy solely because of that one specific auditory trigger.
That is wild. It's exactly as if we all have pre-recorded cassette tapes in our brains. The right trigger comes along, it hits play on the tape and click, where the behavior just rolls out automatically.
It completely bypasses logic.
Yeah. And what's crazy is that humans have our own versions of that cheep cheep sound.
Yeah.
There's this famous experiment by Harvard psychologist Ellen Langer that proved this using something as mundane as a Xerox machine.
Oh, I love this study.
It's so good. She had researchers walk up to people waiting in a long line to use the copier and just ask to cut in. When they gave a real, logical reason, like, excuse me, I have 5 pages, may I use the Xerox machine because I'm in a rush?
People were pretty accommodating, right?
Yeah, 94% of people let them cut.
Which, makes perfect sense. People generally want to be helpful and they like to have reasons for what they do.
Right. But Langer wanted to test if it was the actual reason that worked or just the structure of the request.
The sound of the trigger.
Exactly. So in another variation, the researcher used a completely meaningless reason. They would say, excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine because I have to make some copies?
Which is hilarious because that's why everyone is in the line.
Right. Think about that. They added 0 new information, yet 93% of people still let them cut. The word because was the trigger.
It's the human equivalent of the cheep cheep sound.
Yes. It activated an automatic compliance tape in their brains. And, it happens with money, too. There's a great story about a store owner who had a display of turquoise jewelry that just wasn't selling.
No matter what she tried.
Yeah. So frustrated, before leaving for a buying trip, she leaves a scribbled note for her head saleswoman to price the entire display at times 1/2. Basically, just cut the price in half to get rid of it.
But her handwriting was messy.
Exactly. The saleswoman misread the note and priced the turquoise at double the original cost. And when the owner returned, the jewelry was completely sold out.
Because the buyers used a mental shortcut. Expensive equals good.
Hold on, though. Hearing all these examples back to back makes humans sound incredibly gullible. I mean, we aren't really just walking tape recorders, are we?
Mm.
You have to defend human intelligence here, because surely we are smarter than a turkey reacting to a stuffed animal.
What's fascinating here is that relying on these automatic shortcuts is actually highly rational most of the time.
Really? How so?
Well, think about the sheer volume of information you process in a single day. In our rapidly moving, incredibly complex modern world, we literally cannot analyze every single detail of every situation, every product, and every interaction we encounter.
Oh, I see. We just don't have the bandwidth.
We don't have the time, the energy, or the mental capacity. We need these rules of thumb, these heuristics, just to survive brain strain. I mean, usually a higher price does correlate with higher quality. The shortcut works.
Right, but the problem arises because compliance professionals know how to hijack those necessary shortcuts.
Exactly. They see the shortcut and use it as a backdoor into our wallets. For instance, they use a psychological loophole called perceptual contrast.
Oh, contrast. How does that work?
Well, our brains don't evaluate things in a vacuum. We evaluate them based on what was presented just before them. If a clothing salesperson sells you a $495 suit first, they will then walk you over to the accessories.
And let me guess, the accessories suddenly look cheap.
Exactly. A $95 sweater doesn't seem that expensive by comparison. If they showed you the sweater first, you'd balk at the price. But compared to $500, $95 feels like a bargain.
That is so sneaky.
Real estate agents do the exact same thing. They might show you a rundown, overpriced setup house first. They have zero intention of selling it to you.
Right, they just want to set the baseline.
Yep, they show it so that when they take you to the normal house they actually want to sell you, it looks like an absolute palace in contrast.
So we've got these physical and mental shortcuts that save us processing power. But if we are looking for the most deeply ingrained tape in our brains, it has to be our social programming.
Oh, absolutely.
We've seen how a price tag or the word because can trigger us, but the social triggers, they feel so much heavier.
They do because they are the glue of human society. We're talking about the rule of reciprocation. From a sociological standpoint, there is no human society on Earth that escapes this rule.
It's totally universal.
It is an honored network of obligation. It's the very mechanism that allowed early humans to share resources, like food, skills, or defense, without the fear of losing them.
Because we know we'll get something back eventually.
Right. Because we have this deeply internalized understanding that if we give something, we will get something in return. We were able to build complex, cooperative societies.
It's beautiful in theory, honestly. But because that rule is so powerful and so physically uncomfortable to break, it can be totally weaponized.
Yes, it can.
There was this brilliant experiment by psychologist Dennis Regan. So a researcher named Joe posed as a fellow test subject in an art appreciation study.
Right, the Coke experiment.
Yeah. During a break, Joe leaves the room and brings back a 10-cent Coca-Cola for the real subject. Totally unsolicited favor. The subject didn't ask for it, but they take it.
Because it's hard to say no to a small gift.
Exactly. So later on, after the art rating is done, Joe asks the subject to doing a favor and buy some 25-cent raffle tickets. The subjects who received the 10-cent Coke bought twice as many tickets as those who got nothing.
They happily spent 50 cents to clear a 10-cent debt.
It's crazy.
And the most revealing part of Reagan's experiment was that the sense of obligation completely overpowered personal feelings. They had the subjects fill out surveys evaluating how much they actually liked Joe.
Oh, wow. And did that matter?
For the people who didn't get a Coke, their likelihood of buying a ticket was directly tied to how much they liked him. But for the people who received the Coke, liking him didn't matter at all.
So even if they hated him, they still bought tickets.
Even if they actively disliked Joe, they bought just as many tickets. The psychological weight of the debt trumped their personal preference.
That is the terrifying power of the uninvited debt. You don't even have to ask for the favor to feel trapped by it.
It's a very strong tape.
It completely explains why the Hare Krishna Society used to give people a flower in the airport. They would step in front of you, press a flower into your hand, and if you tried to give it back, they would refuse, saying, "No, it is our gift to you."
And then only after you accepted the gift would they ask for a donation.
Right. The Amway Corporation built an empire on the exact same premise with the BOG. It's a free sample tray of cleaning products left at a home for a few days at zero cost.
Just try it out, no pressure.
Yeah, but once you use a little bit of the window cleaner or the soap, that reciprocity rule kicks in. The psychological debt is created, and you feel entirely trapped into buying something when the salesperson returns.
And the trigger doesn't even have to be a physical gift or a product. It can be a conceptual gift.
What do you mean by conceptual?
It can be a concession. Psychologists call this the rejection then retreat tactic.
Oh man, I actually experienced this myself, like entirely by the book. I was walking down the street and was approached by a Boy Scout. He asked me to buy a $5 ticket to the upcoming Boy Scout circus.
And I'm guessing you didn't want to go.
I had absolutely zero interest in going to a Boy Scout circus on my Saturday, so I declined. And then he retreated. He said, well, if you don't want a ticket, how about buying some of our big chocolate bars for $1 each?
And let me guess.
I bought 2, and I don't even like chocolate. But as I walked away, I realized what happened. Because he made a concession to me, backing down from his $5 request to a $1 request, my brain's reciprocity tape went click. Whir.
You felt you had to concede too.
Exactly. I felt an overwhelming social obligation to make a concession in return.
Well, your reaction was perfectly normal, and it's been proven in rigorous clinical settings. Researchers once asked college students to chaperone a group of juvenile delinquents on a day trip to the zoo.
That is a huge ask.
It is, so unsurprisingly, only 17% agreed. But with a second group of students, they used rejection then retreat. They started with an extreme request. Will you commit to 2 years of unpaid counseling for juvenile delinquents?
Oh, wow. So obviously everyone says no to that.
Naturally. Then the researchers retreated to the smaller request. Well, if you can't do that, will you chaperone them on a trip to the zoo? Compliance skyrocketed to 50%.
That is such a massive jump. Okay, but setting aside small things like chocolate bars and zoo trips, the research points to this exact tactic as the psychological explanation for one of the most baffling political decisions in American history.
The Watergate break-in.
Yes, and I want to be super clear here. Setting aside all the politics and ideologies of the Nixon administration, we are entirely neutral here, just looking at this purely from a psychological lens.
Absolutely. We're just looking at the mechanics of how highly intelligent men, like John Mitchell, the director of the Committee to Re-elect the President, could approve something so seemingly irrational.
Because if you look at it objectively, the Watergate break-in was incredibly risky, incredibly expensive, and completely unnecessary for Nixon, who was already winning by a landslide.
Right. There was no logical reason to do it.
So why did Mitchell, a really smart guy, say yes? Well, because the operative, G. Gordon Liddy, didn't start by pitching the $250,000 break-in plan. He started, weeks earlier, with a massive, insane $1 million plan.
With chase planes and kidnapping squads, right?
Yeah, and high-class call girls. Mitchell, of course, rejected it. Then Liddy retreated to a $500,000 plan, rejected again. Finally, Liddy retreated to his bare-bones $250,000 wiretapping plan.
It was a masterclass in psychological manipulation. Through the combination of perceptual contrast, where $250,000 suddenly looks tiny compared to $1 million, and the crushing pressure of reciprocal concessions, the men in that room felt they had to give Liddy a win.
They were played by their own biology.
They were manipulated by the very psychological rules that govern human compromise.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. If these rules are so deeply wired into our evolutionary biology, how do we fight back?
It's tough, but possible.
Say a salesperson comes to your house, offers you a free fire extinguisher, does a very helpful free safety inspection, and then uses the guilt of that gift to pressure you into buying a wildly overpriced home alarm system. How on earth do you look them in the eye and say no without feeling like a terrible jerk?
The defense is entirely mental. You have to redefine the interaction in your own mind.
Redefine it how?
Well, the rule of reciprocation states that a favor rightly follows a favor, but it does not state that you owe a favor to a calculated sales device.
Oh, I see.
The moment you recognize that the fire extinguisher wasn't a genuine gift of goodwill, but a tactical maneuver designed specifically to extract your money, the feeling of obligation evaporates. You owe them nothing. You are freed from the rule.
That is a crucial mental shift, because we've been talking about how salespeople use gifts to trap us from the outside. But it's actually much harder to defend ourselves when we build the trap ourselves from the inside out.
Yes, which brings us to the internal trap. Commitment and consistency.
Right, the pressure from inside.
Exactly. Humans have a nearly obsessive, deeply rooted desire to be and to appear consistent with what we have already done. Consistency is generally viewed as a strong character trait.
Nobody wants to seem flaky or two-faced.
Exactly. But once we make a choice or take a stand, personal and interpersonal pressures force us to behave consistently with that commitment, sometimes to the point of absurdity.
Like the racetrack bettors, right?
Yes. Consider bettors at a racetrack. 30 seconds before they place a bet, they are hesitant, weighing the odds, unsure of their choice.
Sweating bullets.
Right. But 30 seconds after they hand over their money to the ticket window, they suddenly become incredibly confident in their horse's chances.
Even though literally nothing has changed.
The horse hasn't changed, the track hasn't changed, but their internal state has. They must justify their commitment to avoid the pain of second guessing.
To avoid cognitive dissonance. There's an incredible story in the research about a recruitment meeting for Transcendental Meditation, or TM.
Oh, this one is fascinating.
It's so good. So, two recruiters are up front pitching the program, promising it will cure insomnia and stress. A guy in the audience, who actually happens to be an academic expert in logic, raises his hand and completely dismantles their pitch.
He just totally debunks them.
Politely but firmly proves that their core arguments are contradictory and unsupportable. The recruiters are stunned into silence.
So you'd think everyone would just leave.
You would. But instead of the audience nodding in agreement and walking out, the exact opposite happens. There's a mad rush to the back of the room by the audience to hand over their $75 down payments to join immediately.
It seems completely counterintuitive until you understand the psychology of consistency.
Because they needed it to work.
Yes. Those people in the audience were desperate. They had severe sleep or stress problems. They desperately wanted TM to be the magic cure. When the logic expert threatened to destroy their hope with reason, a physical panic set in.
So they bought in to stop thinking about it.
They rushed to commit financially because once the money was paid, the decision was made. The financial commitment acted as a shield against thought. They could retreat into the safety of their consistency and stop analyzing the painful reality that they might still be without a cure.
We'd do anything to avoid that discomfort.
Yeah.
And think about how toy companies actually use this against parents all the time.
Oh, the Christmas toy strategy.
Yes. They heavily advertise a flashy new toy right before Christmas. The kids beg for it, and the parents, wanting to be good parents, promise to buy it.
But then they go to the store.
And it's sold out because the toy companies intentionally undersupply the stores, so the parents are forced to buy a substitute gift of equal value to put under the tree so the kid isn't disappointed.
Which is already a win for the store.
Right. But then, in January, the company reruns the ads for the original toy. The kids see it and cry, "You promised." And the parents, driven by this intense internal need to be consistent with their word, go back to the store and buy the original toy.
The company brilliantly manipulates parental consistency to secure 2 sales instead of 1.
It's devious.
It really is. And that's an example of a direct, conscious commitment. But there is a much sneakier version of this called the foot-in-the-door technique.
Oh, the billboard study.
Yes. Psychologists in California conducted a study where they asked homeowners to put massive, poorly lettered, ugly, drive carefully billboards on their pristine front lawns.
And normally almost everyone refused.
Almost everyone. But one specific neighborhood agreed at an astounding 76% rate.
Which is crazy. Why them?
Because 2 weeks earlier, a different volunteer had knocked on their doors and asked them to sign a tiny, innocuous petition to keep California beautiful.
That part completely blew my mind. Signing a completely unrelated petition about beautification actually changed their internal self-image.
It did.
They started viewing themselves differently, as civic-minded citizens who take action. So when the massive, ugly billboard request came 2 weeks later, they complied simply to remain consistent with their newly formed identity.
This exact psychological mechanism was utilized heavily in Chinese POW camps during the Korean War.
And again, setting aside all political ideologies and just looking at the mechanics of indoctrination impartially, the strategy was chillingly effective.
It really was. The interrogators didn't start with physical torture to get American soldiers to collaborate. They started incredibly small. They asked prisoners to make mildly anti-American statements, something as simple as, "The United States is not perfect."
Which any rational person would agree with. It seems completely harmless.
Exactly. But then they would ask the soldier to write down a few reasons why it's not perfect. Then they'd ask him to read that list in a small discussion group.
Small escalations.
Right. Then days later, they would broadcast his essay on the camp radio with his name attached.
Wow.
Precisely. The interrogators understood that written commitments are uniquely powerful. They require physical effort to create. They provide tangible physical evidence that can't be easily denied, and they can be made public.
And once it's public, you're locked in.
When a person's statement is made public, a massive internal drive arises to maintain that stand, to look consistent to others. Over time, through these tiny escalations, the soldier's internal self-image would shift to align with his outward actions, and he would begin to actively collaborate.
It's all about what the researchers call the effort extra and the inner choice.
Yes, effort is key.
When you look at groups that require massive commitments, there's this dark parallel between ancient tribal initiation rites, like the Thonga tribe in Africa who put young boys through the grueling yard of mysteries, and modern college fraternity hell weeks.
They are surprisingly similar.
They both involve severe physical trials, exposure to cold, beatings, and unsavory foods. And despite university authorities and governments trying to ban them for decades, they survive.
They survive because people fundamentally value what they suffer for. The extreme effort and pain required to join the group chemically heightens the new member's commitment to the group's survival.
So the hazing isn't a byproduct.
No, it is the engine of their loyalty. But here is the critical psychological key. To make a commitment truly stick long-term, it must be perceived as an inner choice.
Meaning they chose it themselves.
Right. You cannot use massive threats or massive bribes because then the person attributes their behavior to the external force, not their internal character.
Right. The robot toy experiment proved this perfectly.
Exactly.
An adult told young boys not to play with a really fun robot toy in a playroom. For one group, he threatened severe punishment if they touched it. For the other group, he just gave a mild instruction saying it was wrong to play with it.
And while he was there, neither played with it.
Right. When the adult was in the room, neither group played with the robot. But 6 weeks later, when a different researcher brought them back and the adult was gone, the severely threatened boys immediately played with the robot.
The threat only worked when the external enforcer was present. But the boys who received the mild instruction avoided the toy entirely, even weeks later. Because the external pressure was so small, they had to take inner responsibility for their choice not to play with it.
They internalized the rule.
To resolve the dissonance, they convinced themselves internally that they simply didn't want to play with it. They took ownership of the rule.
Which perfectly explains the most devious sales tactic of all. Lowballing.
Oh, car dealers are infamous for this.
Yes. They offer you a fantastic price on a car, maybe $400 below the competitor. You enthusiastically agree to buy it. You fill out the massive stack of paperwork. You take it for a test drive, maybe even take it home for the night.
And during this time, your brain goes to work.
Right. Your brain starts building up all these new internal justifications for why this is a great car. The gas mileage, the color, the way it handles.
And then right before the final signature, the salesperson comes back looking apologetic and says there was a calculation error. Right. They forgot to add the cost of the air conditioning, or the manager rejected the deal. The $400 discount is suddenly removed.
But people still buy it.
The vast majority of people still buy the car because they have generated their own internal support system for the decision.
It's wild.
The exact same thing was observed in an Iowa natural gas study. Homeowners were promised their names in the newspaper if they conserved energy. Thrilled by the publicity, they started saving massive amounts of gas. Then a letter arrived saying the newspaper publicity was no longer possible.
And the crazy part is, they ended up saving more energy after the reward was removed. It's exactly like building a table.
A table.
Yeah, think about it. The compliance professional gives you the first leg, the $400 discount, or the newspaper publicity. It props up your decision. Then your brain, wanting to be consistent, builds 5 more legs of justification.
Oh, I see.
So when the salesperson casually kicks out the original leg, the table doesn't fall down. It stands perfectly on all the new legs you built yourself.
It is a remarkably effective internal trap. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to ask, what happens when we can't look inward to remain consistent?
What do you mean?
What happens when we face a situation where we are completely uncertain about what to do? That is when we abandon our internal compass and look outward to the herd.
The principle of social proof. Okay, exploring this principle finally explains something that has annoyed me my entire life. Canned laughter on television sitcoms.
It is universally disliked.
It is so phony. Everyone knows it's fake. Everyone hates it. So why do networks insist on using it?
Because the behavioral research shows conclusively that it works. Canned laughter causes audiences to laugh longer and rate jokes as significantly funnier, especially bad jokes.
Even when we know it's fake.
Yes. We're responding to the sound of laughter. We react reflexively, just like the mother turkey responding to the cheep cheep sound. When we are unsure if a joke is funny, we use the reactions of others as evidence of what is humorous.
But it's not just a parlor trick for bad TV. Social proof can literally rewire the brain and cure phobias.
Yes, the dog phobia study.
Right. There was a study involving preschool children who were terrified of dogs. They were completely cured of their phobia simply by watching film clips of other children playing happily with dogs for just 20 minutes a day.
It's amazing.
The social evidence of other kids having fun safely overpowered their individual fear.
It is an incredibly powerful force, especially in moments of crisis, or what psychologists call disconfirmation. Consider the infamous doomsday cult observed in Chicago by sociologists in the 1950s.
Oh, Marion Keech's cult.
Right. The leader, Marion Keech, prophesied a world-ending flood, but assured her dedicated followers they would be rescued by a flying saucer at midnight.
And when midnight came and went, and there was no flying saucer and absolutely no flood, you would think the spell would break. You'd think they would pack it up and go home in shame.
But they didn't. Prior to the failed prophecy, the cult members were highly secretive. They shunned the press and didn't care about recruiting.
They just kept to themselves.
Exactly. But the very moment their physical proof was destroyed, when the spaceship didn't arrive, they desperately turned to the press and started frantically seeking converts.
Why?
Because the psychological pain of being wrong was too great. If the physical evidence proved them wrong, they needed social evidence to prove them right. Their new psychological imperative became, if we can convince others it is true, it must be true.
That herd mentality makes sense in a cult, but it gets incredibly dark when you look at it in everyday society. Specifically, the tragic historical case of Catherine Genovese in Queens, New York.
Yes, a very sad case.
38 witnesses watched from their apartment windows as she was attacked in the street below for 35 minutes, and not a single person picked up the phone to call the police.
It's hard to even comprehend.
So what does this actually mean about us? The newspapers at the time called it urban apathy. They theorized that city living literally makes people cold, selfish, and indifferent to human suffering. Is that true?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we find that the urban apathy theory is a fundamental misconception. Psychologists Bibb Latany and John Darley spent years analyzing this and proved it wasn't apathy at all.
Oh, was it?
It was a psychological phenomenon called pluralistic ignorance.
Pluralistic ignorance. How does that work?
Well, think about being in a city. In an ambiguous emergency, say you hear a scream, but is it a murder or just a loud marital dispute? Is that man having a heart attack or is he just sleeping off a rough night?
You just aren't sure.
Right. Because it is ambiguous, everyone looks around to see how others are reacting to determine if it is a real crisis. But in our society, everyone in a public setting is trying to look calm and collected.
So you don't look crazy.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So while you are secretly glancing at the guy next to you, he's trying to look perfectly calm while secretly glancing at you. All anyone sees is other people doing nothing. The social proof dictates that nothing is wrong. The group consensus rapidly becomes, this isn't an emergency. The failure to act happened because there were 38 people, not in spite of it.
Wow. That entirely shifts the blame from a lack of morality to a flaw in our psychological wiring. So looking at everything we've covered today, whether it is the click whir of reciprocity making you buy a candy bar you don't want, the internal trap of consistency keeping you loyal to a manipulated decision, or the herd mentality of social proof causing you to ignore a real emergency, our brains are fundamentally hardwired for shortcuts.
We can't escape our biology.
Right. But you do have defenses. When you feel that tightening in the pit of your stomach, that physical sensation that you are being trapped into a corner by a salesperson, pay attention to it.
Listen to your body.
Or look to your heart of hearts, that initial flash of pure feeling you get before your brain has a chance to rationalize a foolish consistency. Trust those physical signals.
This raises an important question, though, a final thought to leave you with today.
What's that?
Well, all of these tactics, reciprocation, lowballing, social proof, they have historically been deployed by other human beings, constrained by human limitations. But what happens to us when artificial intelligence masters these exact triggers?
Oh, that's a scary thought.
If an algorithm can perfectly simulate social proof with millions of synchronized bot accounts, or if a system can customize reciprocal concessions to your exact digital profile in real time, how will our ancient evolutionary shortcuts strengths hold up against machines that know our psychology vastly better than we know it ourselves?
That is a terrifying and utterly fascinating thought to chew on. We might need a whole separate deep dive just for that. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration of the human mind. Until next time, keep your eyes open, listen to your stomach, and watch out for those invisible strings.